Welcome in everybody to episode 12 of Real Spill where the truth wins. You already know the deal by now. It's your boy Scott Procter, joined as always by my guy Ellis L. Williams, who covers the Carolina Panthers for the Charlotte Observer. Before we get into any of that, I just on a serious note, I just wanted to extend our serious thoughts and prayers for Bill's safety, Damar Hamlin, who was involved in some tragic event on Monday night. We've got some good news here Thursday morning, and his condition is improving, so we'll continue to keep him and his family in our thoughts and prayers and pray for a speedy recovery. L, is good to see you, my boy. How we doing though?
Yeah, no, things are all right, man. A real sombering and in ways numbing experience Monday night for all of us.
Yeah.
Anybody connected to the football world, of course. Thoughts and prayers and hearts are with Damar and his family. Like you said, some encouraging news.
Yeah.
And all we can do is keep him in our thoughts and talk about football, man. That's what we do. So let's get after it.
No doubt about it, man. Let's do it how we always start things off with bump and run. We'll start right here, man, because the final AFC playoff spot is up for grabs this weekend. And I'll ask it this way, L. Who is the most dangerous possible 7 seed in the NFC to you? Is it Detroit or Green Bay, who we play each other on Sunday night? Or is it Seattle, who is also hoping for a Lions win so they can sneak in?
Yeah, dog, we've been talking about it all season, it feels like. And now we're at this point where really, I think the NFC is an open race, right? And we've seen a Green Bay team get hot before. We've also
Mhm.
seen a Green Bay team head to San Francisco and
Get
say, see
dog.
you later. Right. And this Eagles team is perhaps not in the healthiest place, which we're going to get to a little later.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, for the way I saw Detroit get ran over by Carolina, for the Jekyll and Hyde that is the Seahawks season
Yeah.
right now, give me Green Bay. We saw what they were able to do last week to a Minnesota Vikings team that still clearly doesn't look like a true contender.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, you got Aaron Rodgers, a group of rookie receivers that are only getting better, a defense that seems to be coming into its own, and perhaps now the best kick returner in football. When special teams used to be Green Bay's downfall, now it's giving them points.
Yeah.
You got to really like where the Packers are at.
Yeah, that boy Nixon is a dog, ain't he, man? He kind of came out of nowhere, is providing some real juice to that special teams unit for the Packers, something they sorely needed. I think the Packers is probably the right answer, but I who want to play Detroit? I mean,
Yeah,
I get it. I get that the loss to Carolina to your Panthers a couple weeks ago was very ugly, especially what they gave up on the ground, a franchise record for the Carolina Panthers, obviously. But again, Detroit to me still is one of the most explosive offenses in the entire NFL. They can go for 30 on anybody. And defensively, again, they have issues clearly stopping the run, but they can get at your quarterback. Aiden Hutchinson is already one of the best pass rushers in the entire NFL. The other rookie they got on the other end, Houston, is another talented rookie pass rusher. So I really like the Lions. If they can sneak in, first off, who do you I'm assuming you're expecting the Packers to beat the Lions on Sunday night?
well, there's a world where that Sunday night game doesn't even matter for Detroit, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
I do expect Green Bay to take care of business, but look, this league is just who
Crazy.
knows, man. It really is the parity in the league this
Yeah.
year. You really got to tip your hat to what the league has always tried to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
We really are at a point where it is any given Sunday, and this is only going to get crazier when we roll into the playoffs.
No doubt about it, man. Talking about these playoffs too, I gotta ask this before we get up out of here. This bump and run. Which quarterback injury is the most worrisome to you at this point? Obviously, talking about Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. The Ravens have somewhat stayed afloat without Lamar, but the Eagles have lost 2 in a row since Hurts went down with a shoulder injury. Which quarterback injury is most worrisome to you at this point?
It's close, but I think you got to go with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. John Harbaugh, as early as Thursday availability, was asked about Lamar Jackson's situation if
He
he
didn't
would
sound too
be
happy
ready
about
for the playoffs, right?
it.
And
Yeah.
he said, "I'm not addressing it. I'm going to worry about the game in front of me." So this is all building towards either like a heroic Lamar Jackson return, where he's just going to put on a Superman cape and come take the Ravens to a playoff
Yeah.
run, or this is headed towards we're not going to see Lamar again. Either way, I think we have to be realistic about who the Ravens were before Lamar got hurt. That's still a high school looking passing game relying on quick outs and slants,
Yeah.
and then a go do something for us Lamar Jackson rushing attack.
Yep.
I say all that to remind people that the Eagles have just a more sound offensive scheme around Jalen Hurts, and this injury to Jalen seems more precautionary than
True.
it does with Lamar, who seems injured to the point where he has clearly not been able to return.
Yeah, all that is facts, no doubt about it. I think what you said at the top about the NFC is why I think Jalen Hurts is the most worrisome injury because I
Right.
have to be honest, I didn't really look at the Baltimore Ravens, even with the healthy Lamar Jackson, as a
Yeah.
legitimate Super Bowl contender with the Chiefs and the Bills and the Bengals in the AFC. But the Eagles, on the other hand, in a wide open NFC conference, especially with how they look throughout the majority of the season, they look like a team that could really go all the way to the Super Bowl, similar to how the Eagles did a few years ago, a handful of years ago, under Nick Foles, kind of coming out of nowhere. This would be a little bit different, as they were undefeated throughout most of the season. But just another what was seeming like a perfect storm, and now it's looking like the opposite if they don't get Hurts back in a hurry, and if he doesn't return, looking like he did earlier in the season, man. But let's move on, man. It's time for the big spill where I sat down earlier this week with former NFL MVP Rich Gannon. We'll get into that right now. Welcome into the Big Spill, where I'm here with the four-time Pro Bowler, a former NFL MVP, and current CBS Sports analyst. It's Rich Gannon. Rich, thanks so much for joining us, my man. How are you doing?
Scott, I'm doing great. Happy New Year. It's been a wild run through the first 17 weeks of the NFL season. And of course, it wraps up this weekend, and I can't wait.
No doubt. The playoffs are finally here, right around the corner, and Happy New Year to you and yours as well. Let's hop right into things, though, Rich. Let's start with the team that you won an MVP with and helped lead it to a Super Bowl. What do you make of the Las Vegas Raiders benching of Derek Carr, obviously going with Jarrett Stidham to end the season? And where do you think their future at the quarterback position lies?
Yeah, I haven't really spoken to Josh McDaniels or Dave Ziegler, anyone within the organization. I mean, obviously, I've watched all the games. I call the preseason games. I just think the organization has made a decision not to bring Derek back in 2023. And I think, they've had a good year here to evaluate his body of work. And I think they want to move on. Now, whether or not Jarrett Stidham is the long-term answer, I would say he got off to a really good start against the number one defense in football last week. I thought he made big-time throws. I thought he played well. Sure, a couple he'd like to have back, but I think you have to find out, right? So it's an opportunity for the Raiders with two games to go, starting last week's game, to get a sense of who he is, what he's capable of. He played really well in the preseason. I was really impressed with his body of work. I think the Raiders have to make a decision on who the quarterback is going to be in 2023. It's a good opportunity to take a look at Jarrett Stidham here for the final two games.
No doubt. What do you make of Derek Carr's season? Obviously, his first season underneath, Josh McDaniels. Do you think, he kind of played himself out of, Las Vegas, or do you think this was more of a, kind of a similar situation to what Josh McDaniels did years ago in Denver, where he arrived there in Denver? Jay Cutler was there. Jay Cutler wasn't his guy. He shipped him off elsewhere to kind of get his guy in the building. Do you kind of see a similarity here, or what do you make of that?
Well, when you say, not your guy, the question is if you want to replace a quarterback, that's fine, but you better make sure you have someone to replace him with, right? So if you're not sure that Jarrett Stidham's that guy, there's no guarantee the Raiders are going to get a quarterback in the draft. It's not going to be a great free agent market. Good quarterbacks aren't on the street in free agency. So, I always say buyer beware, right? So, my sense is that, you look at Derek Carr's body of work. In fairness to Derek, there's been a lot of turnover and change around him, and that's never good for a quarterback. So a lot of different coordinators and systems. He's had a couple different head coaches throughout the course of his career. He's never really had a good defense around him. And I think that's made his job more difficult. But at the end of the day, we're judged on wins and losses. He's got more losses than wins as a starting quarterback in this league. He's turned the ball over a lot this season, really a lot the last two seasons. And that's ultimately what did him in my opinion. I think it was time for them to take a look at Jarrett Stidham. And my sense is that they'd already decided that he wasn't going to come back in 2023. Why not take a look at the young quarterback?
No, that makes sense. It's going to be really interesting this offseason to see what the Raiders do at the quarterback and where Derek Carr ends up landing, because, he's going to be somewhere probably with an opportunity to, win some meaningful games. On to the team, Rich, that you got your first NFL action with. That's the Minnesota Vikings. Which version of this Vikings team is the real one? Is it the version that's undefeated in one-score games this season, or is it more like the version that gets dog-walked by the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Packers?
Scott, I think it's somewhere in between, right? I mean, you mentioned some of those ugly losses to Philadelphia, to Dallas, falling behind 33-0 at the half to an Indy team, the losing record. And of course, what happened last week at Lambeau, they turned the ball over 4 times. They didn't play well. I think they're a more competitive team. They've been better in late game situations. They were 2-5 in games decided by 4 points or less a season ago. This year, as you mentioned, they've been really good in those situations. I think Kirk Cousins has played well enough. I think the issue right now is their defense. They're 31st in total defense. They're dead last against the pass. Yeah. I think they've given up more explosive plays than any other defense in football. And I just don't think it's sustainable. I just think that you can't rely on Kirk Cousins to go and the offense to go out every week and score 30 points. So something's got to give. The issue I have right now is the play of their defense.
No doubt about it. That's dead right. And obviously a lot of criticism is going to be hurled at, Kirk Cousins, and maybe rightfully so. But as you mentioned, this is one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL this season and really hasn't even gotten better. It's more of an aging, defense, especially in the secondary. You're relying a lot on Patrick Peterson, who, while he's still a good player, he gives up some plays clearly. So that's going to be an issue that they're going to have to figure out before this, gets too deep into the playoffs. I want to move here, Rich, because I co-host this podcast with Ellis L. Williams, who covers the Carolina Panthers for the Charlotte Observer on their beat. I want to talk about their quarterback situation. Obviously, with Sam Darnold kind of taking the helm here recently, playing pretty well, had the Panthers in, a control your own destiny type of scenario before their loss to the Bucs on Sunday. What do you make of Sam Darnold and really the Panthers quarterback room here moving forward?
I think the Panthers will be in the quarterback market. There's a handful of teams that I think really need help at that position. I think the Carolina Panthers are one of them. I think Atlanta's another one in that division. Tampa Bay Buccaneers may find themselves in the same boat if Tom Brady retires. And, of course, New Orleans Saints. There's no guarantee what's going to happen with Jameis Winston. So, it's not a good situation to be in. There's probably going to be 10 or 12 teams that are looking really hard at ways to upgrade and improve the talent in that quarterback room. And clearly the Carolina Panthers are going to be one of those teams. I just, when you look at Sam Darnold's body of work, I just don't know that you can trust him, right? I think he's had problems with decision-making, with ball security. That's one of the reasons they ran him out of New York. It's one of the reasons he's been sat down a couple of times in Carolina. He has played better here the last couple of weeks that he's gotten a chance to play. The crazy thing about Sam Darnold is physically, he's got a lot of the skills and the intangibles that you love at that position. He's athletic. He can move around. He can extend. He can manufacture some plays with his legs. He's got a good enough arm. But it's really what hurts him is from the neck up. I mean, the decision-making at times is just too much to overcome. And I think, he's got to understand that when you turn the football over, there are consequences. And most of the time it involves being sat down, right? And I think he's got to understand that you can't put the team in harm's way. And he's running out of opportunities. He really is. That's the problem with Sam Darnold in Carolina.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been encouraging to see him play better as of late. But yeah, again, it's going to be another interesting offseason to see what the Panthers do and where, he might end up if he doesn't stay in Carolina. Let's move down to South Beach, though, because I've heard you recently have some thoughts on Tua Tagovailoa, who's personally one of my favorite quarterbacks. I think he's one of the most criticized guys at the position in the entire NFL. And again, maybe rightfully so. But, aside from, the concussion stuff, which is very serious, and we're hoping that, he's able to, recover fully and, get back on the field if he's able to. What do you make of, Tua's kind of, breakout season here in year 3 where he spent some time in MVP conversations? And, what do you think his future is in Miami?
Well, I think hopefully, as you said, his health is not an issue, and I think he'll definitely be back under center as a starting quarterback in 2023. I saw a lot of growth and development from Tua Tagovailoa in this year with Mike McDaniel. I think they're clearly on the same page. I think Mike's built an offense around what Tua likes and does well and has got a history of doing. I think he's thrown the ball better and more accurately with better anticipation down the field. These last, 4 games haven't been as good. When you look at the completion percentage, some of the turnovers. But for the most part, I think if you step back and you look at what he has done, I think you got to be really pleased. And I think it's something to build on. Remember, this is still a very young quarterback, and there's been a lot of change around this young quarterback. A lot of system changes, a lot of play caller changes. So finally, he's got some stability around him. And Mike McDaniel, a coach that I think sees the game through the eyes of the quarterback, coach that believes in him. And I think better things are in store for Tua in 2023.
No doubt about it. I can't stand, and you mentioned it. This is still a very young quarterback. And I really can't stand the notion in the trend of, just giving up on quarterbacks at the NFL level so early. I mean, again, we've seen Josh Allen struggle as a rookie, be just a little bit better as a sophomore, and then turn into one of the league's best quarterbacks in year 3. And we're seeing that here, recently with some other guys. Jalen Hurts is another example. Struggled early on, finally get in a good situation, get some good pieces around him. And again, we're seeing that with Tua. We just need to give these young quarterbacks a little bit more time, I think, Rich.
Right. You know what? So many people, Scott, so many people don't understand the importance of the development at that position and how long it takes. I mean, Peyton Manning was 3-13 in his first year in the NFL. A lot of interceptions. I think there is a process. You mentioned Jalen Hurts. I think that's a great example of how he's really turned a corner. I think Justin Fields has a chance to do that next year in Chicago, right? I think the Chicago Bears are keeping their fingers crossed in hopes that he can be the next Jalen Hurts, right? Because the area where Jalen's really gotten better is functioning from the pocket, right? Better decision-making, better anticipation, better accuracy. I think that's what we need to see from Justin Fields. But you mentioned Josh Allen. Josh Allen, his first year in the league, completed 52%. Everyone said he wasn't a very accurate quarterback. Then the number went to 59% in the second year. Then the third year went to 68%. Now all of a sudden, he's an MVP candidate every year. It's amazing. What all of a sudden changed? Did he all of a sudden become a very accurate? Or just woke up? No. He started to have a better understanding of protections, better understanding of pass game concepts, better understanding of footwork, a better understanding of fronts and coverages and pressures and what defenses are trying to do. More reps in the system. I mean, you start putting all that together for a guy that's has a high football IQ, a guy that's got a great work ethic. The game's important to him. Good things are going to happen, and I think we're starting to see that with some quarterbacks like Tua Tagovailoa.
Preach, Rich. Talk to him. And I completely agree about Justin Fields as well. I think he's going to be the next guy to take that next leap in kind of a year 3. Again, it's obviously, important that they surround him with the right pieces and coaching as well. But I expect that for Fields. Last question I got for you, Rich, before we get up out of here. We talked a little about Jalen Hurts. We mentioned him. Has Gardner Minshew's and the Eagles' struggles over the last couple of weeks given validity, do you think, to Hurts' MVP case? Or is this just a Patrick Mahomes award that he has to, run away with?
No, I'm one of the 50 voters for the Associated Press Awards. I've won that award in the past, and I really appreciate what Jalen Hurts has done. I think you see how important he is to that football team when he's not in the lineup. Now, I think it's important to play every week or as many games as you can. I think it'll be important to see what he does this week. If he comes back this week and has a big day, I think that could certainly help his chances, but he's certainly on my short list for the NFL MVP award.
No doubt about it. He has to be. He's been spectacular this season. So is Patrick Mahomes. I would give him the edge just on his consistency and doing it with less pieces that he's had in the past. And again, the Chiefs are right there at the top, the AFC. So that'd be my answer. I love Hurts as well. He should be right there in the mix. But that's going to do it for us. On to the crowd talking Carolina Panthers. Let's start right here, man. The Panthers were eliminated, unfortunately, from playoff contention on Sunday after a 30-24 loss to Tom Brady and the Bucs. You were there at Raymond James Stadium for this one. How did Brady and the Bucs keep Carolina out of the postseason for the 5th straight year?
Yeah, look, dog, we talked about it last week at this very hour, and I said, what happens when you corner a goat? That's because I was a little worried about what happens when you corner a goat.
Yep.
And the Carolina Panthers found out in the form of 432 passing yards for Tom Brady. His 5th career highest passing total comes when he's 45 years old, playing in Week 17 against the Carolina Panthers with the division essentially on the line. The Buccaneers do clinch the NFC South now, of course, like you said, Carolina Panthers eliminated. And really, this came down to Tom Brady and Mike Evans reconnecting finally. Look, Mike Evans had gone, and we're going to get into Mike a little bit later, but you can't really talk about this game without mentioning what Mike Evans accomplished, right? 3 scores, touchdowns of 67, 53, and 30 yards, I believe. Essentially, all this was, Scott, was go balls. It's that simple. Mike Evans running past backup cornerback Keith Taylor and starting cornerback CJ Henderson multiple times.
Rough day at the office for those two.
Yeah, rough day. And really, it's easy to follow the football, right? In this game, that's essentially what we're trained to do when we first start watching football via the broadcast. But where this game was lost, aside from the obvious of a cornerback not being able to stay in front of one of the best long ball receivers in the game, was up front. Carolina was unable to pressure Tom Brady the way they needed to alter his launching points. They let him sit back in there, pat the ball 2-3 times and unload. The Bucs came in with one of the more quick striking offenses in the league, underneath throws, running back flat outs. Tom Brady was releasing the ball in 2.3 seconds, second fastest in the league. And this was a completely different script. For whatever reason, the Panthers' stunts inside were not able to generate pressure. Verse 4, the Bucs pass rush got a little healthier. They had Tristan Wirfs back at tackle, but that interior still was somewhere where Carolina thought they had the advantage, specifically with a guy like Derek Brown, and that just didn't manifest. And the result was Tom Brady, Mike Evans, really ending the regular season the way we all thought: Buccaneers, NFC South champs.
No doubt about it. And you mentioned obviously the Panthers, lack of pass rush. The Bucs were able to get after Sam Darnold at least on one pivotal play, one of the probably the biggest plays of the game. That strict set, and forced fumble on Darnold late in that game that kind of really helped open the game up for the Bucs. Let's talk a little bit about Darnold because he balled. I think I saw you say that he probably played his best game of the season, 341 yards to the air, 3 touchdowns, a few turnovers though. What do you think Darnold helped prove in terms of where he's going to be next season?
Yeah, well, first, just from a career retrospect point of Sam Darnold, this was the quarterback Scott Fitterer and former Panthers head coach Matt Rule traded for a year ago.
Yep.
And it was the Panthers who failed their promise to Sam Darnold last year, not Sam Darnold failing on his end. Scott Fitterer promised to protect Sam Darnold, which is code for giving him an offensive line, which is something he did not have in New York. Right. And he didn't get that last year. But the Panthers rebuilt that offensive line this season, and then you got to see what Sam Darnold's capable of doing behind it. You know better than anyone, this is a position about confidence. For the most part, this position is decided when you are comfortable back there and able to make throws that you can anticipate, and that's because there's not going to be any extra muck in your feet or in your throwing windows, right? Yeah. And that's what the Panthers were able to give to Sam Darnold. As for next year, there's going to be a team. This is going to get really interesting. Either Sam Darnold is going to return to Carolina as the pseudo bridge or veteran presence in the quarterback room, or there's going to be an NFL team that sees Sam Darnold as a potential starter. The problem here comes into the reality that entering, I believe it was week 15, the NFL had already seen 54 starting quarterbacks. Some quick math tells you 32 times 2 is 64, meaning almost every team in the league has played at least 2 quarterbacks. Now, there's been some teams that have played 3, the Panthers being one of them, but you get what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. Is Sam Darnold one of the best 32 or 35 quarterbacks in this league? He's starting to put together, a 4 or 5 game run here that would say that. So all it takes is one GM to think he's one of the top 32. And then all of a sudden he's got a chance to start somewhere next year. So really the biggest winner in all of this, if the Panthers don't end up retaining Steve Wilks, would be Sam Darnold's short-term future in this league. He's made a lot of money these past 4 or 5 weeks.
That's the perfect bow on it, man. I don't know if this last month has been bigger for anybody, again, aside from Steve Wilks, than Sam Darnold. He might have completely turned around his perception around the league, and it might lead to a new job, whether that's, again, in Carolina as a week 1 starter or elsewhere. But let's move on to here. Last thing here on the prowl, the Panthers, you guys are reporting at the Charlotte Observer, talked to Jim Harbaugh here recently, the Michigan head coach. What were those conversations like, and how likely is it that Harbaugh ends up the next Panthers head coach?
Yeah, first of all, for the conversation, I just think this was just an initial brief conversation gauging interest in the job. Sure. Not a formal interview. The Panthers have not started that process. They need to interview 2 minority candidates to follow the Rooney Rule, and then that will expand into the offseason. And I think this will take a while, just considering, think of the entities that the Panthers are going to pursue or have already talked to, starting with Harbaugh. That's a college coach who would really come in and start running your program like he did in San Francisco or with Michigan, and it would really be a clean slate. Who knows what that would mean for the general manager here and Scott Fitterer, so on and so forth. Then you have in-house guy in Steve Wilks, who you know what you're getting. You had a 12-week tryout. And then you have your likely candidates, the DeMeco Ryans, Steve Steichen in Philadelphia, those type of coordinators who are a little less proven, but of course are the hot commodity, right? So you really have the Panthers in all styles of the type of head coach they're looking for. College, proven head coach, and who had done it before in Steve Wilkes, and then the up and coming coordinator. I think this is going to be a long process in Carolina, and you're getting all sorts of flavors, because what you're getting in Jim Harbaugh is going to be completely different from what you get in Steve Wilkes.
Yeah.
And if you go with an up and coming coordinator like D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, I mean, this is a search that should take a long time. They should take their time with this. And I heard Tepper here recently again reiterate that he's learning. He's still new to this, and he's still kind of learning as he goes. So it's going to be important. I would love to see Wilkes back, but again, something tells me that it's just not likely at this point. We'll move on though, L. We'll move on to nickel and dime, man. Talk about who was a 10 last week and who wasn't even worth the nickel. I'll let you start, man. Who was your dime? Who was a 10 last week, L? Talk to me.
Look, we already gave him some flowers, but he deserves more. Mike Evans, dime of the week, reminding everybody of the deep threat and really the person that makes this offense go for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 207 yards, second highest in his career, happening against Carolina. And dog, just seeing those receptions in person, the way he's able to put his hands up at the very last second so that the DB has no idea where the football is. He put on a clinic of the deep ball. And just to be there in person, it felt like 60% of what I'm sure people were watching Tom Brady and Randy Moss do. And I am comfortable saying that, man.
Yeah.
Stride for stride down the sideline. That's when Tampa's offense is at its best. That's when football, especially for the way you and I have came up, enjoy it most. Mike Evans, a dime. Welcome back. Anyone playing best ball in fantasy finally got those points you were waiting on Mike Evans for.
1K Evans, man, 1,000 yards every single season in the league. He's one of the best to ever do it, man. Stacking them, no matter who the quarterback is. That's not a Tom Brady related thing either. I love that pick, man. My dime of the week, I got to go with Kenny Pickett, man. The numbers aren't going to jump out at you, man, but another comeback victory, another game-winning drive. Mike Tomlin is sold on this young man, so am I, man. Kenny Pickett, he looks like the real deal, man. The Steelers might have another franchise quarterback, man. That's good to see. I'm going to move on here, though, to my nickel. That's the quarterback of your team, my guy. That's Kirk Cousins, man. Another disappointing performance, man. 3 interceptions against the Packers. The Vikings, y'all could have ended the Packers season, man. Sent them boys home packing. Instead, you drop a dud. Again, Kirk throws 3 picks. His worst QBR, I think it was 10 on the entire season. Disappointing performance from him in that offense. Kirk Cousins is my nickel of the week. Who is yours?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with a guy who really is a consummate pro in this league and a staple of leadership. But Commanders head coach Ron Rivera at the podium after Washington's loss was made aware of the fact that his team could be eliminated from playoff contention after the 4:00 window, which is exactly what ended up happening. And Coach Rivera clearly did not know that was a possibility. It's okay for things to be unknown when you go into a game. There's a lot of factors, but I think the outcome of what you're playing for needs to be at the forefront when you're trying to achieve a victory and then mapping out your quest to the playoff. Ron kind of got caught up in the moment there. You'd think he could be a little more quick on his feet. I'm wondering what the PR conversation was like after that pressure. All in all, a tough look for a coach who has that team trending in the right direction, but some of those similar self-awareness moments that have plagued Ron in his career showed itself again.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look at that as nearly as bad as other people, but that coming on the heels of him making the decision to go with Carson Wentz over Taylor Heineke, which was already clearly unpopular, probably within that locker room, but certainly among Washington fans, doesn't make him look good. I got to agree with that nickel there. But that's going to do it for us, though. For episode 12 of Real Spill, you already know how we do it, man. For Scott Procter, for Ellis L. Williams, we'll catch you next time on Real Spill.
Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out our other videos and don't forget to smack that subscribe button down below while you're at it. Also, for more great and original content, head right over to bvmsports.com.